Guys, well, this is Aaron Squire coming to you guys with another episode, Deck Building with the Squire. We got episode 13. We're going to be talking about Bloodytrailz deck that he gave me. I think it was this is another person that gave me a deck before Christmas. But first of all, I'm just going to point back behind me, as you may notice that something has changed. Some of the more savvy people here, we'll go ahead and zoom in. Yeah, that's basically the Hex key art that I got when I was at the Hex dinner. So I had that framed and set it up behind me. So I hope that it adds a little bit of flavor to the whole casting for you guys. Hope that you guys enjoy that, seeing that back there. Next on the docket, we're going to talk about some of the news tonight. We'll also be talking about a YouTube comment, and then we'll move on to our deck doctor. I'm going to try to keep it kind of quick tonight. My wife isn't feeling well and I need to tend to her, and we also have some other things going on. So some real life stuff going on, as it were. Also, I'll just apologize ahead of time if it seems like I'm a little bit off. I've got a lot of things on my plate right now. So but I am committed to doing this show every week if possible. So I will keep this going on as long as I can, and make sure that I am doctoring those decks for you guys, taking care of all of my followers and my people. All my Hex TCG bros, Sifs, and bro Ninas, something like that. So it looks like Twitch is just it's crapping out on me, so I'm gonna have a hard time seeing very much of anything on it, I'm thinking right now, as far as chats. So we'll just start it off right here and go to the Kickstarter website. As you can see here, they're just talking about the update, and then it just directs you back to the website we were just on. So let's go over there. And they're talking about some of the different changes they've decided to do. They've got another big patch coming. This one is going to be pretty freaking awesome because it's going to give us sealed deck. So for those of you that don't know, sealed deck basically means we're going to give you a deck of cards. You're going to make a pool. You're going to basically you're going to get a pool of cards. It's usually 6 packs of cards. It says 6 boosters, so that they are keeping that. And you're going to make a deck out of those cards. Now this is pretty good. It's not as good as pick and pass because you can get really hosed on your pool with 6 boosters. You don't have as much control as you do with the typical 8-man pod when you're drafting. But it's still a step in the right direction, which tells us they're getting ready for draft. Typically you're going to make some sort of a 40 card deck, and of course you want to get it as close to 40 cards as possible. Normally you're going to run between 16 and 18 resources in a deck like that, depending on what your spell curve is. You won't want to go beyond 41 cards. You want to get the best cards possible in this deck so that you have the best chance of drawing them. You're not typically going to see drawing the best cards. You're not typically going to see more than 15 to 20 cards in a deck anyways in most of your games. Usually the game's over by that time, so always keep that in mind. I see a lot of new players that are, when they're making their sealed decks and stuff, they always go 60 because that's what they were basically brought up on, and so that's what they feel like they need to do that because that gives them more stuff to play with. But realistically, still got to draw the cards, so it doesn't really help you out very much. Another thing that's going to be really huge for people is Ben Stoll talking about them bringing back the prep phase, which is basically upkeep for all the Magic players that are out there. Prep phase coming back is really huge for people. A lot of people were kind of blew up about this. Every time we make a change, which is like a little bit divergent from Magic, people usually throw up their hands and start getting kind of out of hand, as it were. And they're bringing it back. So they listen to us. So they are listening to you. They are following the forums. If you make good points and you use constructive criticism, they're just trying stuff out. It's an alpha, so they are putting it back. We also saw this when they took away the when they took away the triggered abilities. They took away the triggered abilities, and then they said, oh well, we really needed to have triggers that actually target, because that's the things that you're going to want to respond to. So they basically gave us triggers back for things that you needed to respond to, things like Wild Root Dancer, so that way I can kill the creature it's trying to buff. However, while they were doing that, lately with games, it seems like when something is sitting on the stack, I've noticed that it won't, if I'm hovering over it, it won't point to what it's targeting right now. So that's just a minor bug that I've noticed recently that's come up, and I'm sure that that's also in the works. We've had some other issues with cards that were fine that got broken after this last patch, but as always, they're working really hard up there. In fact, they talk about all the different things that they're doing. They've got the artists working, they've got the engineers working. Everybody's working really hard out there and bringing this to bring this game online and make sure it is that we can get the best game possible out there. Shaggy's going to be playing against, I have to read it. I believe it's Havoc. Yeah, it's Havoc. He'll be playing against Havoc, who was the winner of the Tournament of Streamers 2. So make sure to check that out. That's going to be 21st January, 5 p.m. Pacific. So make sure to get out there to do that. And that is pretty much all of the changes, all of the news for today. I'm just going to go to one more thing. I'm not going to bring it up, but I had a YouTube comment come through today. And I'm not going to talk about this person, but I'm sure if you looked it up, you could find it. Basically, they're complaining about waiting for the game. They use some expletives, which I don't need to go into. And they're saying that everyone's going to move on to better games by the time this game comes out. And then they basically call the Cryptozoic people not nice names. So, and they're also pissed off because they're asking for a beta invite and they got nothing in return. And so for everyone that's out there that wants to play this game, you can play this game. You spend your $50, you're in on the alpha. I mean, they didn't have to do that. They could have kept it closed to all of the Kickstarter people, or not let us in at all, or not really give. I mean, this is not too many games are doing this alpha thing, although it seems to be becoming more of a popular thing with games now, is that you can pay so you can play a broken game, and you can be cooler than everyone else and get a little bit of flair or whatever else. Mostly, when I'm playing the game, I'm doing it in order to get people excited about it, but also to find bugs personally. That's my motivations for playing in the alpha right now. Different people have different motivations. Obviously, this person probably wants views for their channel, and this person has a lot of views on different games and stuff, and a lot of other stuff going on. But just because it is that you have a lot of views and you have a lot of followers, that doesn't give you the entitlement. You shouldn't feel entitled that just because there's a new game coming out that a company should just throw it to you, just willy-nilly. This person also didn't do their research because they said the game was in beta and it's most clearly in alpha. And they didn't look up, obviously, some of the other things. So a lot of complainers are out there. I know that my videos are getting big when I see a lot more complaints and I start seeing people with downvotes on them. So I guess that's a good thing. I mean, you really can't have a really popular thing without having people that dislike it. You can't please everyone. So it's actually probably a pretty good thing for me. So let's move on to the deck doctor from here. And this one came from Bloodytrailz. He put together a control deck, and his main things, he gave me this whole synopsis about it, and I would post it in the chat. What I'll do is I will post his deck list in the YouTube video comments, so that way you can go to his version of the deck list and see what his whole comments and things that he wants to see out of this deck. Mostly he wants to respond to his opponent on his opponent's turn. Unfortunately, we don't have the gem to do that right now. The quick action where you can throw it on a creature, or on a troop rather. So let's just look through the deck real quick. So he's playing Y the Sapper. He's playing with both he's playing with Diamond and Sapphire deck. So I mean, for Magic players, it's blue and white, and a lot of people like to say blue and white are the colors of Magic. Unfortunately, in this game, Diamond doesn't have board sweeper like Wrath of God, so it's very much a different feel to it as far as the Diamond Sapphire control variant. So he's got 3 Arcane Shields in here, and a big thing we want to look at with this Arcane Shield is how many things in the deck can this save. So how many troops are we saving with this Arcane Shield? So we'll probably get rid of some of those. Mastery of Time is another favorite because he can play it, and like Eldritch Dreamer comes through twice. He's putting the card draw gem on Eldritch Dreamer, which is a good choice. That's pretty typical, pretty standard right now. Time Ripple, decent, but this is more of a tempo type of card. This isn't really a removal, so we might have to go with something else. Time Ripple now costs 2. It doesn't actually cost 3. Ancestor's Chosen, another typical card we see in any type of Sapphire control. It's a nice early drop. It's a really bad late drop. It throws those nice 2/2 specters in the deck, which can get offensive, or they can block for you if you need to. They can chump off things, and they're cantripping you through the deck, which is always good. Countermagic, another one, which is a very reactive card, of course. Why the Sapper's is the champion they chose for this particular deck to draw cards, and I believe it's 5 charges to draw cards, not 6. The other thing is a little bit prohibitive, and I've run into this too, running a Sapphire Wild version of a deck like this, which was just trying to draw lots of cards, is sometimes you won't have this threshold, so that can become prohibitive as well. He's running 3 Repel. Repel has seen a big resurgence after they dropped the costs on it. Of course, they changed it. It used to be attacking or blocking defending troops, and it's since gone down. They reduced the cost on it very much so, and then made it so it's just attacking troops. So the problem with Repel is it's not going to get rid of those resource dorks that don't typically attack in, or anything else that's going to sit on the board and not attack in. That's the only thing you need to realize when you're playing with Repel, and how many you're going to play. It's also playing Oracle Song in here. Playing 4 of them. I don't necessarily like personally to play too many of these, but 4 should be okay. I typically run 2 to 3 of these. The big thing is with Oracle Song that you can't play it at quick action speed, and he did point that out in his article, or in the synopsis he had for this. Soul Marble's another one that he's playing in here. Is kind of an interesting choice, and this allows us to dump those extra resources at the end of our opponent's turn, because we're reacting to most of what they're doing anyways, and so we have to make our opponent play around our plays. So Soul Marble does that very, very well. I've had people play it against me. The big thing is that he was talking about Soul Cavalry, and I believe that, let's see, this is going to be a Steadfast Spell Shield 5/5. He said 6/6, so they might have changed that. Soul Cavalry is pretty good, but we got to look at how many troops are we actually buffing with the Soul Armaments, which is going to give things Spell Shield and +2/+2. Again, we're gonna go back and count how many troops we've got in the deck and see if Soul Marble is really going to be worth it, because again, if our opponent deals with all of our troops and then Soul Marble that's buffing everything doesn't really help us. However, it makes it much more difficult to deal with our troops if they have Spell Shield to begin with. Inner Conflict, another big one that we see a lot, pretty typical, because it deals with like Fist of Brigadon or a lot of other things that are just headaches to deal with. Sapphire Shards, and of course he doesn't have, it looks like he doesn't have Shards of Fate in here, so that will definitely be something we're going to add to the deck. So pretty good, pretty good. So we're going to look to see what we've got. We've also got some cards added since he submitted this deck, so we can definitely beef it up and change some things around. So let's go to our all cards right now, and then come down to Sapphire. And we also will get our artifacts or no color cards. PvP, check that one. So another big one that people are running a lot now is Incantation of Ascendance. So I haven't run this personally. I could see people running between 2 and 3 of these. We're going to throw it on there and just see if we want to try to fit that in. Benjamin the Wise is another big one that can draw us lots and lots of cards. So or actually, it depends if we're running a lot of humans or not. Shaggy ran an article where he did play a Sapphire Diamond deck that ran a lot of humans and used Benjamin the Wise that took advantage of him. Sometimes he's going to not do well because he's going to look at those top 3 cards, and if none of them are humans, you don't get any card draw. But typically, he should draw you something. So it's an idea. We could run him. He only costs 2. Mentalist is another one that draws more cards. And Mentalist cannot, however, buff Benjamin the Wise, but he could buff the Eldritch Dreamer. This is one that Shaggy was running. I'm not sure that I would. We're gonna put one on there. We'll probably pull it out. Arcane Shield he's already got in there. This thing, not so much. Twisted Fate, probably not so much. Mastery of Time. Yesterday, probably not the greatest for this deck, but we'll put one on there anyways. It can work really well with all those specters. If you have like 4 specters on the table late in the game and it's kind of a stale board state and you feel like you just need to draw some more cards, you go to your attack phase and then swing in or something, or do something, and then you use Yesterday and pull all the cards back to your hand, and then you can replay them and draw more cards, of course. Or you could Yesterday on your opponent's end step. And so that one actually might be decent for this deck idea, this deck type. Mimic is decent. However, the problem is that Mimic is going to make a copy and put it into play, and then Mimic itself will go to your graveyard. So if you bounce the copy back, you're simply, yeah, it's not going to do very much for you in this deck type. If we're trying to do a lot of reactions, we're going to put one in anyways to see if there's something good that we want to mimic. Mesmerize, we might have to play with. I know he wants to play a lot of quick actions, and Mesmerize doesn't do that, but it's something that's going to be more removal and less tempo. And it depends on how much tempo we really feel like we need in a deck like this. We're not really playing a lot of tempo-y type of cards, it would seem. We're not playing a lot of flyers. We do have the evasion with Eldritch Shield, or Eldritch Streamer, but he's pretty slow play at 4. It feels like we more or less want to control the board. When we're playing a lot of reactions, it feels more like maybe we want to control the board more. Choose and discard 2 cards, ready to exhaust. Okay. Choose discard 2 ready or exhaust target artifact or troop. That would be interesting with what's it called, the thing that doesn't untap. It's like really big. I'm looking for it here. Dro something or Darrow. Yep, no. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? I forget what the guy's name is. They just basically released it, but it's basically an 8/8 that doesn't ready itself. Kind of an interesting idea, I guess, to play something like that maybe. Buccaneer's another one that we see a lot in these decks. We'll probably throw them on there. Time Ripple. If we had the gem, the big thing is with the quick action gem. The reason why it's so important, especially for control decks, is one, I can play a troop in my opponent's end step if my opponent does nothing, and then maybe that puts some sort of a threat on the board. So that's a consideration with Eldritch Streamer, because he's a threat that really can't be blocked. Instead of like doing the card draw. The card draw is really good as well. But the other thing is say our opponent attacks in with like a 2/2 or like a 2/3, we can respond to his attack phase by playing that Eldritch Streamer and then blocking with it, thus giving us card advantage where our opponent wasn't ready for that particular play. That's a really big play for control type, Sapphire type, or blue decks in Magic, and so that's a gem that's not been put in yet, and so hopefully in the future we'll get to see that pretty soon. This guy is kind of, yeah, I mean he doesn't really fit what we're trying to do here. Interrupt target cards. If interrupted this way, put in his owner's hand once per game. So this is like a Countermagic, but it's more tempo-y. I don't think that's really going to fit for us. It's going to be a good fit for us at all. Playing the Oracle Song, Dream Dance. Choose and draw and discard a card. Yeah, that's probably not going to work for us either. Wrenlocke is more of an idea for this deck than some of the other things, because we are playing a high amount of spells in the deck, that's for sure. Thunderbird's another one that you see played a lot because turn 2 Thunderbird is pretty difficult to deal with. Peak is a new card that was just released, and Menacing Grolk's another big one that a lot of people are playing, but it might be a little bit prohibitive at 3. But Peak is definitely an amazing. It costs 2, so it's a turn 2 card, but you're going to look at it for how many Sapphire you have. In a deck like this, it doesn't really suffer too much, even though we are dual sharded. So what you would do is basically get your 2 Diamond Shards, and then from then on out you would prioritize having Sapphire Shards if you're going to play with Peak. So we could play with Peak to help us give our... it's more deck manipulation because it's basically cantripping itself into a card. Mirror Knight, probably not so much. That thing, no. Kraken. Another thing we could consider playing is Charge Bot. We've seen John play with that as well in mono Sapphire decks with that are running the Volt Cannon. Let's see, Chaos Key, probably should be unnecessary. Most of we have point and click removal, and Chaos Key is going to be pretty expensive for us. Another thing we can consider playing is like Argus. Argus is removal for us, and he's pretty. He'll eventually get pretty cheap, and we're just going to sit on the board state anyways. So eventually we'll be able to afford Argus, even if we don't draw shards. Because on turn, I mean, by turn 6 he'll be 6, because he starts at 12 and he starts counting backwards. If you top deck him on turn 6, and then from then on he's going to start counting backwards. So Argus is pretty good, I'd say, for a deck like this, because he just controls the whole. I mean, when we're playing control, I look at Argus and I say, that's good control, because right now Murder has been nerfed down, and a lot of things are going to be a 2-for-1. Plus we have Countermagic to protect them, and we've got some other stuff. We could also maybe play like an Eternal Guardian. Oh, there it is, Dro's Colossal Walker. Yeah, that one card that untaps it. Of course we need our Shards of Fate. We definitely need 4 of these. Of course, the thing is with Eternal Guardian is that he will always cost 8, whereas when we're playing Argus, I mean, he could cost 3 if we hold out that long, and we very well could. That could easily happen. Polymorphic Dingler is more of a reaction removal card, and he did talk about it. It's a little bit prohibitive at 5, but yeah. Let's see, Mesmerize. Alright, so let's look at the deck. We added 19 cards, but some of those are going to become 4-ofs and other stuff. So before we had stuff, I'm just going to count up how many troops we had in the deck. We had 4 Eldritch Dreamer, that's 4 troops. The 4 Ancestors Chosen, so 4 more. And nothing else. So he's playing Soul Marble in here, and he was playing 8 troops. And most likely he's going to. I mean, it has versatility, so he can use it either way. But that, I think, in of itself is somewhat of a problem, especially when we're playing Arcane Shield, because we could have nothing to target with this. Big problems. So I've recently, if I'm going to play this card at all, a lot of times I go down to like 2. Also, it's double threshold, which makes it really difficult to play. So we're going to go down to 2 of those. Incantation of Ascendance is another card that can take over the board state. It's like kind of like which win con do we want to have in the game? Do we want to use Incantation of Ascendance, which makes that huge Lightning Armada, because we should be drawing lots of cards, and we're basically trying to control the game until then? Or do we want to play like Argus? I mean, Argus seems better to me, actually, than Incantation. Incantation is decent too, but again, I mean, it's another one of those things where like if you really need a blocker, for instance, and you top deck this, it's not going to save you. So I'm really not pro for the incantations. I'll probably play them eventually and try them out, but something tells me I'm not going to like playing with them. They are powerful, I will admit that. More powerful than I give them credit for sure. Mentalist we could probably get rid of, and then Benjamin's not going to get any humans for us because we need to like build the whole deck around Benjamin, so we're going to go ahead and pull him. Mastery of Time we're going to leave in there because I haven't really played with it very much, and it does pretty well for a lot of people. 5 is a basic action, but it's going to give you that extra turn with your Eldritch Dreamer to draw you more cards. Mimic we could probably get rid of. We don't really have a lot in our own deck to target with it. We're not really playing. We're playing control. We're not playing tempo. Tempo would be like we're going to bounce a lot of stuff and then just try to push as much damage. And then, you know, our opponent ends up with a handful of cards, and they're like, well, if I could just play a card, this would be fine. But because I can't, and you have stuff on the board, I lose. But if they gain tempo and you can't start removing their stuff, then you're in trouble. But this seems he's going for more of a control build. He wants to do a lot of reacting. So because of that, we're probably going to actually be removing a lot of the cards I put in. Probably remove this Buccaneer. I think I can prioritize maybe 1 or 2 Dingler. Dingler's kind of fallen out of graces with people as far as like something that's going to be widely used. The other thing with Time Ripple is we can target permanents with it. So if there's if our opponent plays a Soul Marble or something like that, we could bounce it for a turn. to, make our opponent replay it. So I don't think it's horrible. We'll go down to like 2 for now. We might go down more. I'm not sure. Let's see. We are at... We also have to keep in mind our resource curve as well. Let's see. We're at 70 cards. We need to dump 10 cards right now. I think the repels can definitely stay at 3. They could go down to 2. You could go up to 4. I think Archmage is going to be much, much, much better for us with the amount of spells that we're playing in this deck. Just the sheer volume of spells is... Archmage should draw us a lot of cards that way. Wrenlocke is in this dual shard deck. We could play him as a one-of. I think Argus is also decent in this deck. Soul Marble is one I think he really wanted to play with, so we're going to leave that in the deck. I'm not sure we want to play with 4 of them. I mean, it's a troop and it's virtually soul armaments. Typically in a deck like this, you're probably going to end up making it into that 5/5 spell shield troop, I would think. Peak's another one that I'm going to play probably over Oracle Song. Also, it's a quick action, which is what he wanted to begin with. So let's go down to like maybe 2 or like 1 Oracle Song, and like let's play a play set of Peak. I think that's very doable in here. It's going to be a 2-drop. It's not a 1-drop. It doesn't really give us a nice 1-drop feel, but it is a single threshold, so that seems pretty good to me. So let's see where we're at here. I really kind of want to throw Argus in this type of a deck. Actually, I really think that he fits very nicely, actually. He's something where you can just sit there and your opponent's like, well, he's got lots of cards, and saying, oh no, he's got Argus. And they're like, they'll worry about it, and then they'll have to put out threats, and then you'll be able to react to their threats. I think it's really something that can push the board state. And it voids cards when he hits the table, so I think that that's really good for us. Not sure. We aren't really tempo, so I think we can pull the Wrenlocke. The Wrenlocke is really good when it is that I've got this stale board state I need to push through damage. So that's not really what we're going for here. We basically want to remove a lot of stuff. The other problem with playing this deck is if something is spell shielded, we're going to have fits with it. It's gonna be a huge problem for us. I suppose it would be nice to have another... Well, I guess Ancestor's Chosen gives us some flyers. Okay, we need to get rid of 9 more cards. Probably something in the 7.7 or 5-point range. Mastery of Time, Yesterday. Mastery of Time is probably much better than Yesterday, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. We could probably throw Yesterday on the sideboard, though. Another 5-drop cards. We got 6 of them. We got 2 more. Oh, that's Dingler. So we'll go down 1 Dingler. It's less removal for us, but that's fine. We're okay with that. 7 more cards. We may actually need to go up a shard as well. We could even maybe get rid of Oracle Song altogether. It's definitely a nice one to have. It's nice to play Oracle Song when I have like 6 resources, because then I can fake out a Countermagic. That's probably the best time to be able to play that card. Pete's going to let us find Argus and like Archmage Wrenlocke too. So actually I'm going to go down 1 on a Wrenlocke. I think we have to keep the... Well, no, we can go down 1 Conflict here. Or we can go... Which is also not quick action speed. So we'll go down on that because we have the 3 inner conflict. We've got Dingler, and we've got 1. I think we have 1. I put 1 in here, and maybe I pulled it out already. Something else. Where is it? I must have pulled it out. Mesmerize. I think I pulled out Mesmerize. So Arcane Shield, I really don't feel like does a ton for us. We have Countermagic if someone tries to target our dude. But other than that, I don't think we have a lot of dudes to protect with it. That's the big thing I'm looking at. And so I think we can safely get rid of Arcane Shield out of this deck. And again, the reason why is how many things am I going to target with it? And it's not, I mean, it would almost be better to play with Stoneskin, because Stoneskin stops, I believe it's called Stoneskin stops, whatever it's called, the one where it deals X damage and you gain X life. It stops that because it stops it from targeting you. Repel is really good. It's quick action speed. We like that. Inner conflict actually costs 3, so actually we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at our curve. I think I can go down 1 Repel. It's more spot removal. Doesn't deal with like Fist of Brigadon. Deals with a lot of things very well though. Time Ripple. Let's go down to maybe 1 Time Ripple. I don't see us using this a whole lot to bounce our own things. That's the other thing. Is it's nice to be able to bounce my own stuff with Time Ripple, but if I'm only bouncing my opponent's stuff, there'll be times when I really either don't need to or it doesn't make as much sense. We'll probably go down some on maybe the Soul Marbles as well, because the thing is, like, let's say we're drawing our opening hand and we draw like 3 or 4 Soul Marbles. Okay, so we have to charge up each one of those, and so that's basically, we're dead to rights at that point in the game. So we're actually going to go down 2 on the Soul Marbles. I know he really likes these, so I'm definitely not going to get rid of them, but that's the big thing I have with this. Sometimes when I'm looking through cards, and especially if I have 4 of them in the deck, I'm like, if I have an opening hand, and I have 4 of these, or 3 of these in my opening hand, is that a good thing? Or a really bad thing? How good is this card? Now obviously with like Fist of Brigadon, I don't want to have 4 of those in my opening hand. That's an auto mull, but because the card is so good, I know I need to draw it. So having 1 in my opening hand is really good. So it's okay. Going back to Trick Jarrett, who did a lot of commentary, now works for Wizards of the Coast, he used to say that what you would want to look at is like 4 ofs are cards you want to see in your opening hand. 3 ofs are cards that you could sometimes see in your opening hand, but you definitely want to see them mid-game. And 2 and 1 ofs are cards you want to see late in the game, not really towards the beginning of the game. That's typically what you want to see. So we have made our quota. Our curve looks okay, not amazing. Maybe nicer. Yeah, we might actually even get rid of 1 more card. Maybe get rid of 1 Mastery of Time, because there's a chance that this is just going to draw us a card. Also, I think if I get rid of 1 Mastery of Time, things may look a little bit better for us, and that still works with everything else if we have Eldritch Dreamer on the board. Let's just think about also Mastery of Time works very well with Ancestors Chosen, putting more Specters in the deck. What else does it work very well with? Archmage Wrenlocke, it will draw us a card. It will draw us 2 cards because we'll draw a card on our next turn. And Soul Marble, if we had those extra resources, it works pretty well with that as well. So it works pretty well. Oh, you know what? I might actually have a lot more card space because I added those 4 Shards of Fate. So I might have more card space than I think that I do, because I've got 27 resources in the deck now. We have to reduce our resources. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to take this down to 24. Again, we're running kind of a high curve here. He talked about that as well, what he wanted, what he didn't want with that. But I think that going up is not too bad here. So with that, we can now go up maybe 1 more Soul Marble. It's not... I think we can do that safely. Maybe pull back a Repel. I kind of want to have a good early game. And what else can we do? Mesmerize seems okay. We've got 3 inner conflicts. We'll go up 1 inner conflict. I'm trying to remember if inner conflict is double threshold or single. It is 3 though, so like where it says we have... Yeah, so it's not counting things completely right, so we can't exactly trust this. Let me see here. If I do inner conflict, it says that's an 8. And let's see if I get rid of it. What moves here? Nothing moves. Okay, well, I might have to refresh the page. Going back up. Oh, maybe 3 is moving. 10. Let's see. Is it working? Yeah, okay. So it is reading the cost on inner conflict correctly, so that's good for us. 59 cards. We've got our win cons. So our win con is we're basically going to use peak and card drawing to eventually get to Argus. Once we get to Argus, we should basically take the game over. Playing against some decks, you might want to have Countermagic in hand before you play Argus, and that's the other great thing again about Argus in a deck like this, because say I have 5 resources and I have Argus is at 5 and I have Countermagic in hand. Well, I can just simply wait 3 turns, and then play Argus, and now he costs 2, and I still have Countermagic in hand. And hopefully I have other cards that are dealing with the other threats that are on the table. Probably another Oracle Song, I think, would be good here. So I think this is the deck. I really like the way that this shaped up here. Yeah, our curve looks pretty good. We're at 24 resources. I saw that he talked about that. Again, I feel like because we've got some, what is this, 9 things, and then I'm basically going to count Argus as a 6, because typically that's when we're going to be able to cast him, but eventually we'll be able to cast him for nothing if we really had to. And we're just sitting on the board state anyways. Yeah, that seems pretty good to me. So I think that is going to be the deck. And what I'm started to do is I've started to put the deck together and then play it later on the weekend and then post it in the comments, so definitely check the comments for that. We'll go ahead and throw some reserves together for this real quick. Probably maybe another Mesmerize. Again, it's probably going to be more ratios based, you know, so that way we can bump up our totals. Time Ripple could be good, so we'll probably put like 2 of those. So in the sideboard, we could also, let's go back to our all cards. We can go ahead and flip on. Yesterday would be pretty good for us, so we'll go ahead and maybe throw 2 of those in there in case we need them for someone that's playing like tokens or something, because replaying all those tokens really sucks. Just so everyone knows that in this game, tokens have casting costs. So if you bounce a token, it doesn't evaporate like it does in Magic. It actually goes back to your hand. And if you kill a token, it does go to the graveyard, and it can be resurrected or shuffled back into the deck, or any number of things you could do with a regular troop card you can do with the token. Another interesting thing here. Bottle of Vitae is another one we could consider putting in the main deck, because we don't have a lot of resource fixing, which could become an issue for a deck like this. Let's see, what else? Could put a Eternal Guardian on the sideboard as another game lock situation, because if say you're playing against ramp and you're dealing with all their stuff and you get down to like 3 life and you happen to have 8 resources, you play Eternal Guardian. Most ramp decks, I know mine particularly, doesn't have a lot of interaction. I have maybe 4 cards that interact. And by interact, I mean destroy my opponent's creatures or permanents or stuff. I have like 2 Chaos Keys and a Squirrel Titan, and I think I have 3 interaction cards basically in that deck. And so they aren't going to be able to deal with Eternal Guardian, because in that, like say you were playing against that matchup, Eternal Guardian is basically going to save you until you can get board state, and especially flyers versus any type of green or wild type deck is going to be really good for you. Let's see, Stormcall is another one we could consider, although Stormcall got a lot better actually after they nerfed Menacing Grolk. So they had to nerf a card to make another card better. It says exhaust X troops, so you can do this as a quick action. So that's actually fits into the flavor of our deck, so I guess we could throw 2 of these in there. Another card we'll probably throw in here is, I'm not seeing it right now. Oh, you know what? I didn't even have the diamond cards up, did I? Didn't even look at them. That's why I was thinking about that. Defender. I gotta go back. Stoneskin's another one we could run on the sideboard in case our opponent's running whatever it's called, the deal X damage, gain X life. Revert target card, definitely not. This, I really feel strongly that this card needs the cantrip. It needs to say revert target card and draw a card. They could make it cost 2, and that would be perfectly balanced, perfectly fine, because a lot of times you're not going to have anything to revert anyway. So a lot of the other reversions are stuck to creatures or stuck to troops, and that's a lot better for those players. Resurrection's another card we could play in this sideboard. Yeah, it doesn't seem that great for us because we don't have board sweeps in here. I like Frost Wizard. We aren't really shuffling anything into our deck. So Frost Wizard would be an excellent card to counter Crash of Beasts, or if our opponent's playing with Pack Raptor or something like that. Frost Wizard would do really well. Unfortunately, he's kind of broken right now and unplayable in the alpha, as far as I know. I don't know if they fixed him at some point in time. It's also a 2/2 body, which is nothing to sneeze at. But he's very. I think that he isn't seeing enough play, but that's just because he isn't. He's just broken right now. Let's see. There it is. Spearcliff Cloud Knight's a definite 4 of. Now we could 4 of this in our main deck, but we want probably to have the 2 threshold is going to be maybe a little bit prohibitive, but we're going to put it on our sideboard. I'm not sure, or our reserves rather, which is sideboard for all you Magic people. Let's see what else have we got in here. Living Totem's another one we could run, which is also a very reactive type card in the deck. So we could also consider running this in the deck. So actually I'm going to throw that in the main deck right now. The main thing with Totem is it gets worse and worse, and you can do it during your opponent's end step. This seems a lot more viable than playing with Soul Marble. Soul Marble does the same thing very slowly, whereas this is dealing damage the whole time. Now obviously this is more removable than Soul Marble because troops are the most removable things in this game, but still, you know, it's going to be. I still think that Living Totem's a much better play, especially for two for a 2/2 that gets out of hand pretty quickly, and it has the 1 threshold. It's still an amazing card. Still sees lots of play. It's still very viable, especially in a deck like this. Let's see. Trial of Faith. Anything else? Paladin, Repel, he's already got in there. The Pawn, Eternal Youth. So an interesting thing with Eternal Youth is that we could play a singleton Eternal Youth, and if we play, I forget what his name is, he just came out. Basically, it's a card that when he transforms to his 3rd thing, he becomes a 4/5 that allows you to draw any card. So if we play a single, I just said the card's name. If we just play a singleton Eternal Youth, we can just draw it over and over again. Now that's not necessarily going to win us the game, but so you kind of have to weigh that against it when you're making that type of decision. Let's see, Blinding Light. Blinding Light's another one you can play in your sideboard. I've seen people play it main deck. Oh wait, no, not that one. I'm thinking of the one where it says you go back up to 10 life after you're dealt lethal damage. Yeah, here it is. It's Aesthetic Aspirant turns into Enlightened Seeker, which is like an 0/1, but he draws you 2 cards because you draw a card at the beginning of the turn and then you draw a card at the end of the turn, and then he turns into the Transcendent, and this guy lets you search your deck whenever you draw cards. Now he's not a 6/5, I believe he's a 4/5, but still pretty ridiculous card. That 5 toughness is pretty prohibitive, pretty difficult to get past when your opponent's trying to kill your creature. So let's go back to our deck. I think we'll just hammer a couple more things out, and we should be there. We should be exactly where we only have 4 more cards. I just added the 4 totems, so we can actually go down on some things and fit those in pretty nicely. There's a 2-point range, raises up pretty good when we do that. So it's time for my children to brush their teeth. So we're going to go back down on the Repel, I think. We can go down the Oracle Song and the Soul Marble, because this basically does the same thing as Soul Marble, and then one of the Inner Conflicts. And I think that fits in Totem really well, and that will do really well for us. It's also going to make it pretty easy to play. We don't have to worry as much about playing Totem as we do with like Spearcliff Cloud Knight. Now you could also main deck Spearcliff Cloud Knight in this deck for sure. You would just have to remove some things, and you would become more of a aggro deck than a control deck. And there's a lot of we definitely beefed up the amount of troops in here too. So we got like 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, and then you could count the Soul Marbles, so it's like 16 troops compared to what we had before, which was like 4 Soul Marbles and 8 troops. So we added 4 troops. So a little bit more than a quarter of the deck. So we have 16 cards in the reserves. Let's look at what we've got here. Definitely, I think we want the Spearcliff Cloud Knight, 4 of them, because it really deals well with those mono Ruby decks. Not that those are going to be a huge problem for us, but it could definitely get you that. You get a little bit of life back, and those decks have a hard time pushing through the damage they need to before they gas out. And as soon as they gas out, they're pretty much done with the game. They basically should be picking up their cards and leaving. Other cards. Stormcall is also going to be good against that deck. Time Ripple is going to be good against maybe some other control decks. I think Guardian's pretty good in here. Frost Wizard. It's another decent one. Yeah, so probably the Stormcall, I think, because we're really, again, not a tempo deck. This is more or less going to take care of troops for a turn, or maybe if we need to push damage for a turn. So that there's a lot of different ways you could go with this sideboard, depending on what you feel like the meta is and what the market share is for like a ramp deck and all the control decks and other things, and what you feel weak against. So that's what you have there. So just to recap what we did tonight. So we talked about my new picture. We also talked about some of the Kickstarter news, things that are going on, and how it is that they brought back the prep phase. So I hope that a lot of people are excited about that. We talked about some YouTube comments that were somewhat negative, and you know, we're going to be bigger people about that, and definitely be more positive in our community, and try to push forward. And we understand that moving forward, we are going to get more and more people that are going to be not happy with stuff, and we'll deal with it. It'll be fine. We did our deck doctor for Bloodytrailz deck, and I hope that he enjoyed this and liked what I did with his deck idea. I'll be posting this and then playing some of the games with this deck this weekend at some point in time, and then adding that on as a follow-on video for this. And that was about it for tonight. It was a pretty quick night. We're actually done pretty early, so yeah. Once it is Heavy Hitter 86, just to answer you, once I post, I'm done with these, I always post them out to YouTube. And so that was earlier in the episode, I talked about a YouTube comment which was pretty negative, so I guess look for that next time. I'm sorry you came in kind of late. I'm just wrapping up the episode now, and I'm going to be taking care of my wife, who's a little bit under the weather, and I've got some other things to take care of, read the kids the books and all that stuff. But thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. I didn't have a great turnout tonight. No questions asked, unfortunately, and also my chat isn't working because it's not popping windows out for some reason. So right, so that's about it for tonight. So this is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless you and your families, and try not to rage too much out there.